Today on our It Is Written program, we have our friends from ADRA back with an update on how ADRA is changing the world one life at a time. We will be back in just a moment.
It is written, sharing messages of hope around the world.
Let me welcome our viewers to this episode of It Is Written's program, and let me welcome our guests, Ron Kuhn from ADRA, James Astleford. How are you guys?
Well, thank you.
It's good to have the ADRA folks. We always look forward to having you guys here as you tell us stories about practical, what I call practical Christianity in place in various parts of the world, relieving suffering and poverty. And you guys are there in the front lines. We appreciate the work that you do, and I'm always excited to hear about your stories as to what's been happening. So thank you for being here. For the benefit of the viewers, we probably have some folks tuning in for the very first time. Give us a quick synopsis of what is ADRA and what is the philosophy of ADRA. Who would like to take that one?
Go ahead, James.
ADRA, also known as the Adventist Development and Relief Agency, is a relief and development organization that works around the world, present in at least 120 countries, addressing issues of poverty and distress, bringing hope to the poor and disadvantaged in our world, especially since half of our world's population lives in poverty. There's a great work to be done.
Wow, half of the world's population lives in poverty. How's that defined? Was that how would...
Living on less than a couple of dollars a day.
Wow, half of the world?
Yes.
My goodness. Now, let me ask you guys something, because, well, there's so much need. Like, how do you decide where ADRA is going to get involved?
Well, you started by saying that we were an agency that changes the world one life at a time. And some of us sometimes think that maybe we need to update that slogan to changing the world one community at a time.
Okay.
Because we're concerned not just about picking off individuals who then, struggle in their own society, but working with whole communities. And Ron and I, having worked in Asia and Africa, and Ron having worked in South America as well, we're familiar with the process whereby communities approach ADRA and describe their needs and their hopes and their visions, and then we try to be that conduit that brings together the resources and the need and in a partnership that helps people to be able to change their lives. Would you say that adequately describes the process?
Yes, by having a network that covers the entire planet, basically in most countries in development, ADRA does have the opportunity to work in most parts. However, how does ADRA Canada prioritize its focus? It's no science. It's based also on opportunities, on relationships. We have developed a relationship, let's say, with ADRA Mongolia many years ago. And it started normally out of a huge crisis, a drought that sometimes affected millions of people and animals. The case of Mongolia, as I mentioned, right now we are facing a major winter that killed 8 million animals.
Wow.
And this crisis, we don't even heard in most cases in the news, Yes. They are in the corner of a newspaper somewhere. So we are there. We have a presence around the world. So ADRA Canada, focus in some countries that we have opportunities, that we have funding for them, and we build our partnerships there. But let's say ADRA Germany, ADRA Australia, and others will sometimes partner in the same country, sometimes will choose and prioritize other affected countries as well.
Now, you have, I think, interesting philosophy of development. And share that with our viewers. And as a matter of fact, in a little while we're going to see an interesting video, a presentation that speaks to this, but I think your philosophy of development is quite interesting.
Well, most of us here in North America and Canada in particular, we think of ourselves as individuals.
Yes.
But around the world, people don't see themselves as individuals. They see themselves as part of a society, part of a community. For instance, many organizations here do a very good work by being involved with child sponsorship.
Okay,
and
yes.
some of our listeners might ask, why don't you do that? Well, it's a very good work, but we're concerned that it singles out individuals and brings them to a point where they're no longer in harmony with their community.
Oh, I see.
We're concerned about the whole group, and so we would much rather identify a solution in partnership with a community that will take the whole community forward. If the mothers and the fathers and the children are all having better access to water, better access to education or income opportunities, then the whole community can move forward and realize their goals, not just individuals in that community.
What would be some of the development projects that ADRA Canada would be involved with right now as we sit here?
We have several projects, but specifically some that we do. Food security, improving.
So what's
Food security is a terminology that is very broad, that encompasses the use and access of food. Enough food, the right food. Do we have appropriate markets? You may have the best crop, but the farmer is not making any money out of it. So you need also to address marketing issues and issues of storage and issues of market exploitation sometimes. So the food security is a big, broad terminology for working in agriculture and food.
We're so used to going to Safeway or Sobe or any other supermarket where there's always food available of a variety. But in fact, that's not the way for most people. They have to plant and hopefully have a harvest next year and take care of that harvest through the hungry months.
Yes, and in fact, there are things that most people don't even know, that even if you have a normal harvest, by the end of the, let's say, the growing season, you may be running out of grain in many countries. People, and so basic food security concepts of storage, of planning and marketing skills or market understanding will empower, that's the right word, empower these poor farmers, in many cases illiterate farmers who are being taken advantage of, empower them to cope, and not only them, their families and their communities, to cope with this sometimes aggressive and changing world, you know, that takes these vulnerable people by surprise.
Where else would you guys, what else would you be involved in right now?
We can move on to that, but I also want to add the point here, Bill, that we always listen to the community because they have real and felt needs.
Okay.
And when they articulate those, when they tell us where it is that they're hurting or what it is that they want to do, and then we work together with them on reaching those goals, then it makes a real difference. For instance, you asked about other projects. One set of projects that's been very interesting to see develop has been working with physically challenged individuals, especially children. In some communities, such children are ostracized. They're an embarrassment. The children will be hidden in the hut or in the home for all of their lives because the family doesn't want them to come out into society. And recognizing that that's a challenge, ADRA projects have worked to help people to understand that there's help available, that there are simple physiotherapy treatments that can be done, or maybe some minor operations, that there are exercises, that regimes that can be introduced to the children or even to the adults, and then they can emerge out into normal life and make a contribution. They can find fulfillment for themselves. And it's really exciting to see. I was recently in East Africa, and a young man introduced himself to me. He was a teacher. He said, for years, I was hidden in my parents' hut because they were embarrassed that I could not walk, that I was lame. But now, because of the project that ADRA brought to our community, I was able to learn how to walk with crutches. He showed me his crutches. He said, I've been to school, I passed the exams, and now I can teach and give back to my community.
Isn't that wonderful? That's incredible. You know what, we're almost out of time. I want to get to this, this video that you guys prepared, and then maybe coming out of that, I'll have a couple questions for you. Let's watch that now.
In our world where fortunes have been lost overnight, where property values have been depreciated, retirement plans challenged, and income opportunities lost, it is sometimes easy to forget the difficulties faced by those living in extreme poverty. While much progress has been made over the last 30 years in the effort to end extreme poverty, over 1 billion people of our world still live lives of hunger, sickness, desperation, and despair. Children dying from preventable diseases cry out for our help. Youth trapped in survival activities that degrade the spirit plead silently for our assistance. Parents unable to provide adequate food or warm shelter for their children look to us for some way to help them break free from their prison of poverty. When we hear their cries, when we see their misery, our hearts are moved to do something. We give some money, we share a meal, deliver a bag of rice, or hand out a few clothes. And yet, while our gifts are appreciated and meet an immediate need, we have done nothing to bring about lasting change for the long-term improvement of lives. In order to break cycles of extreme poverty and bring about lasting positive change, it is necessary to commit to long-term programs that provide multiple interventions that bring water, health and sanitation, food security, primary education, and income opportunities. This is the exciting challenge facing development agencies. ADRA Canada, part of the worldwide ADRA network, has been working to end extreme poverty in some of the poorest communities of our world for almost 3 decades. These years of experience have helped ADRA develop dedicated, successful programs that lift whole communities out of poverty. In the early days of international aid and assistance, countries and organizations targeted impoverished communities with quick-fix, stop-gap measures. Containers full of food, clothes, medicines or farming implements were dropped off at ports or villages with good wishes for a better future. A series of wells might be drilled to bring water closer to the people. But after the pumps were installed and the donor plaques affixed, the drilling rigs and the organizations that funded them would move on to another region or country in need. Little thought was given as to how the containers of food and clothes might disrupt the local economy, how the medicines might be misused, what villagers would do with the extra time they now had, now that they no longer had to walk to the river for water, or what would happen to the tractors or water pumps once they broke down with no replacement parts or trained mechanics to facilitate repairs. Today, the discipline of international development has grown into a science whereby professional programs of integrated interventions lead a community step by step out of poverty and disease to a thriving community that is healthy, prosperous, self-sufficient, educated, and food secure. Water systems that bring water to people, animals, and gardens are followed up with programs that bring sanitation to a village. The free time that the people now have is used for education that brings literacy, numeracy, health education, agricultural instruction, and skills training to eager adult learners. Small business training is followed up with low-interest small loans, to give people the boost they need to start their own small enterprises. Village planning promotes participation and cooperation. Education programs establish new mores of human rights, gender roles, values and responsibilities. Respect and reconciliation replace abuse and demoralization. Parents learn about the dangers of human trafficking and the importance of education for all of their children. Cooperative programs share resources and help establish a market for goods. With these combined initiatives, development programs are lifting people out of poverty in thousands of communities around the world. Ending extreme poverty in our generation is a goal that speaks to us all. We Canadians want to live in a world that is peaceful, healthy, functional and prosperous. A world where children can fulfill their dreams and parents can experience the dignity of self-sufficiency. Reaching this goal calls for the participation of us all. As we work together to lift people out of poverty, we establish hope, not just for the poor, but for everyone.
Well, that was a great video. Thank you guys for preparing that. Interesting. I had never really considered something you mentioned on there about, for example, the container of clothes that's brought into a community and that, you know, all of a sudden disrupting the local economy. Talk a little bit about that.
When we have disasters or when people think of the need that is present everywhere else, so often they say to us, well, look, we'll give you our old clothes and you can send them to those people. But if you read the label of the clothes, probably that's where the country that the clothes were made in the first place anyway. And the cost of taking the clothes back to Africa or Asia can be prohibitive. And if they arrive and are distributed, then the local economy, the people who are making clothes, the tailors, the seamstresses,
Sure.
Whoever are, all of a sudden their own livelihood is put at risk by our charity.
Yeah, there is a science to this. There is some thought that needs to go into this because you could be trying to do good and actually, you know, doing a little bit more harm there maybe, right?
Bill, the world has changed.
Yes.
Used to be that there were some countries deprived of certain things. So winter clothes or these were extremely needed, and they are still needed, but we need to be careful that thinking about a family or few individuals, we don't make a greater damage to the society.
Yes.
They are manufacturing clothes in most places, and you bring a lot of used clothes out of goodwill. The intention is good, but feelings don't replace rational decisions, so we need to ask questions. Are these affecting them more than helping them? So that we are in the business of seeing the reality there and making the right decisions here, what is most appropriate for them. Right. So sometimes supporting the local economy by buying there actually do more good.
Yeah, that would make sense. We don't have a lot of time, but you've talked about some of the long-term thinking on this and involvement. So ADRA is involved up to a point that this community then is self-sufficient, can sort of carry on their own? Is that sort of the thinking there?
Yes, I guess we try to do ourselves out of a job because the whole point is to help people to help themselves so that they can then live a rich and full life if their immediate needs are taken care of. And if they're part of the solution so that they're empowered, they can see that they can make a difference for themselves, they can then tackle the other issues in their lives and they can spend more time on those quality issues of the spirit as well as the mind and the body that are important to them.
Absolutely. We're about to wrap up, but I know you have an interesting music video that actually served to end our program. Tell us a little bit about that.
Wasn't too long ago, Ronald and I were at a meeting, and our colleague from Sweden, the director of ADRA Sweden, she shared this song with us that I'm going to share with you now. A Swedish couple prepared this song. They called it One Life. Fortunately, they recorded it in English as well as in Swedish, And when we listened to the song, we were very impressed, and we got our videographer, Frank Spangler, who travels with us so often taking pictures of our programs and activities in Africa and Asia, to put some pictures with this. And I think it really makes it stand out.
Excellent. We're going to watch that right now then.
One small piece of bread a day is nowhere near enough. Growing crops in desert sand is arduous and tough. There's no way to make ends meet with nothing left to sell. Hungry, thirsty, what's for supper? There's no way to tell. Overwhelmed, what can I? A single soul so many miles away even begin to do? Can I turn my back when a sister suffers? What would the Savior have done? Thunderstorms brought down the house, a wasteland here instead. I don't know where to turn or go now that all hope has fled. An unrelenting sun is leaving, no shade to be found. Flies, disease, and filth are working hard to bring you down. Overwhelmed, what can I? A single soul 1,000 miles away even begin to do? Can I turn my back when a brother suffers? What would the Master have done? One life, changing one life at a time, one step, taking one step can change the world.
Mom and Pa broke down by sickness, they no longer live. Orphan, lonely children is the heritage they leave. Sometimes miles to walk for water when the wells run dry. The rains just didn't come this year, and there's no telling why. Overwhelmed, what can I? A single soul 1,000,000 miles away even begin to do? Can I turn my back when a brother suffers? What would the Savior have done? One life, changing one life at a time, one step, taking one step can change the world. One life, changing one life at a time, one step, taking one step changes the world.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for being on the program. We look forward to having you back real soon with another update as to what ADRA is doing around the world. May God continue to bless you guys in the fine work that you do. James, before we go, let's remind the viewers of your website.
And our website is www.adra.ca. And I hope viewers will go there, because we need to continue this dialogue, this conversation about what are the issues that face our world and how can we in Canada make a difference. We need to know what are the difficulties and what are the solutions, because there are many.
Absolutely. So I would encourage our viewers to visit www.adra.ca.